All right, welcome. So I wanted to go over the chapter 12 class activity because it is somewhat difficult. So please watch this video entirely. I will go through a little bit of the class activity and also tell you some hints for your exam. Okay, so this is over chapter 12, complex inheritance. You've gone over chapter 11, which is simple inheritance. Now we are doing the complex, which is sex-linked traits, or sometimes you refer to it as X-linked. So if you hear X-linked or sex-linked, it means that it is sex-specific. So it applies differently to males and females, okay? So be sure on your exam that you understand which one we're talking about. If it specifies that it is male or female or X-linked / sex-linked, then you are going to be using X and Y chromosomes, right? Whether you're looking at a female who's XX or a male that's XY, or if it's not X-linked and it's just simple inheritance, then you're just doing a regular Punnett square. So make sure you understand the difference. Make sure you know which one we're talking about on the exam so that you don't do it the wrong way. Okay. Alrighty. So in this, you are looking at the genes or chromosomes of South Park's couple, Randy and Sharon Marsh, and going through the whole thing. So first page starts off by telling you what traits are dominant and what traits are recessive. And you can see there's underlined here so that you can tell the difference between capitalized letters or not, because O looks the same whether it's capitalized or not. Same with S, right? So those are underlined just so you can tell when you guys are typing this, it's not a big deal. You can make sure that it's clear that one's capitalized and one is not. Another important thing to realize on the exam, if you forget capitalization or a space or anything like that, it matters on this exam. Normally, I can give you credit if you spell something wrong. On this exam, it has to be exact. So make sure you're taking notes, you're looking back to make sure that you wrote it the right way. If you don't, I can't just assume that you did actually know what it was, but you just didn't get it right, okay? All right, so these are all of our X-linked traits that occur on the X chromosome. This is our one Y chromosome trait, which is hair growth in the ears. So you're going to come down here and you're going to see genotype. Remember, genotype is what genes does that individual possess, and then the phenotype is what's observed, basically. It doesn't always mean that it's physically observed, that you can always see it. In this case, you can see a lot of these things, but not necessarily all of it, right? Like predisposed to migraines. So when you look through Randy's genotype, you'll see he's X capital O Y. We come back up here and we see, okay, capital O means he's predisposed to obesity. So we're going to write obesity for his phenotype, right? Sharon has homozygous recessive little o or lowercase o, which means she's not predisposed to obesity. We're going to do the same thing for color blindness here. I already typed it in. X lowercase n. We go up here to find out that lowercase n means that they have red-green color blindness. So we know Randy is colorblind. Shannon has one dominant and one recessive. So she's a heterozygote over here, which means that she still has normal vision because the dominant still wins out. So you're going to fill in the rest of these on your sheet before you turn it in. And again, there is only one that relates to the Y chromosome. So this one is only for dad, right? So Sharon's genotype, XX, a female, she would be unaffected by this, okay? Then you're going to answer some questions like, can Sharon tell the difference between red and green Christmas lights? So you're going to go up and say, okay, is she colorblind or is she not colorblind? And you're going to answer the question and then explain it, okay? There are a couple questions here I want to discuss, like, are there traits for which Shannon is a carrier? So I'm not going to go over all of them, but automatically we can see that for colorblindness, she is a carrier. A carrier means that this person carries the trait or allele that can be passed down to present a certain disease or some recessive disorder. So they're not affected. She is normal, but she can potentially pass down the affected allele to her kids, whether it be her son or her daughter. So this is an example of being a carrier. It would be a heterozygote. On the flip side, can Randy be a carrier for anything? Can he be heterozygous? The answer is basically no, right? He can't be a carrier because he has one X and he either has it or he doesn't have it. If he doesn't have it, he can't pass it on to his kids. If he does have it, he can and he will, right? Depending on whether it's a male or female. Same goes for his Y chromosome. So males cannot be a carrier, females can, and that would indicate that they're heterozygous for that trait. Okay. Alrighty. So when you go onto the next page, you are going to be making Punnett squares. Keep in mind that you can type or you can draw this out. If you have the newer version of Word or even on Google Sheets, or sorry, not Google Sheets, Google Docs, you can go here to draw and you can draw it out if you want. So you can use what's here for you and then you can do the rest of it. I like to always start with my X's and Y's. So unlike a simple Punnett square, these ones do have to have X's and Y's to indicate whether they are, oops, I shouldn't have done that, whether they are male or female. Okay, so I usually like to go through and draw out all my X's and Y's first. And let's see here, gonna keep drawing. So I'll do my XX over here on the left and then my XY here on the right. Okay, and then I like to, sorry, the drawing is not great on my end because I'm doing it with a mouse. I like to put dad here on top, so he'll be XY. And then mom over here on the side, XX. Okay. So for the first one, does their daughter need to be treated for faulty tooth enamel? So we're going to go up here. We're going to see what kind of tooth enamel alleles we have. I gotta stop drawing, sorry. Okay, and we're gonna go up here. We're gonna see that dad has a capital E and mom is homozygous recessive. Okay, so I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna add that. Dad has the capital E and mom is homozygous recessive. Okay, so now we're just gonna fill the rest of the table in. So mom's gonna give a little e, dad's gonna give a big E. So I'm gonna have the big E here or the capital E and then the little e. Mom's gonna give another little e and dad's gonna give the only thing he can, which is a big E. Okay. And then dad can only pass down a Y to the kids or to his sons, sorry. So mom is gonna give up her X and she's only got one, basically, one allele that's on there, and that's the little e's. So if we were asking you what are the chances their kids would have faulty tooth enamel, we would need to consider all four of these. But because we're asking just for their daughter, we really only care about this side. Okay, I still want to see you do the whole Punnett square just to make sure you can do it correctly, but we only care about this side, which means that the possible genotypes for Shelly, the daughter, are just that she's heterozygous, right? So she would have X capital E and X, sorry, just bear with this terrible writing, lowercase e. So she's a heterozygote. Does she have faulty tooth enamel? You're going to have to scroll up and look about whether the dominant means faulty tooth enamel or normal. Okay. So you're going to do that for the other Punnett square examples as well. And then the last one, does Shelly and Stan have a chance to develop hairy ears? Remember, this is our Y-linked trait. Okay. Okay, now we're getting to family or fraud part 2. So here's where we get some drama mixed in. We have a young man named Frederick, and he's coming into South Park and saying that he is the son of one of the Marshes. So now we got to figure out, is he telling the truth? So we are going to write down what Frederick's phenotype is based on his genotype. Once you are done with that, you are going to decide whether Randy could be the father or whether Sharon could be the mother. Keep in mind, for Randy to be the father of a son, the only thing he's giving his son is the Y. So the only one you care about to answer this first question is the last one here. Does that match up with Randy? Yes or no? And for the mom, she's giving him an X, right? It's his only X. So If we see that he is homozygous dominant, or better yet, homozygous recessive for anything, like a little e, let's say mom had 2 little e's or 2 little m's or 2 little s's, right? That would mean that it's a possibility that she is his mom. If those do not line up, like let's say where he has a lowercase or recessive allele here, like our lowercase p, if mom has, she's homozygous dominant, she has 2 uppercase p's, there is absolutely no chance that she could be the mom. So you're going to have to go through his phenotype and his genotype and look and compare it to Sharon to see if she could possibly be the mother. Alrighty, this is arguably one of the hardest parts. This is the pedigree. You are 100% going to be doing this on your exam. So please make sure you understand it. Please make sure you listen to how you will type it on the exam. So when you put this on the exam, the way that you will type it, well, actually, let me go through this first. So what this is showing is basically what the affected members of the family are and how they relate to each other. So circles mean females, squares mean males. If it's colored in, it means they're affected. If it's not colored in, it means that they are normal. So again, just like the Punnett squares, the first thing I do here is I go and put all my X's and Y's. Okay, so I have XX, I have XY here. And then go through and do it for the whole thing. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it's going to take me too long, but we do have question marks here, right? So you're going to have to figure out who those are for the sake of having children together. We're going to assume that this male is procreating with a female and this female over here is procreating with a male. Now, we do not know if they are affected or not. So that's the question mark, right? We have to figure out, are they affected and how do we know that? So I go through, I put my X's and Y's on every male, female, and then I go in and I figure it out, right? So we are looking at baldness specifically here. So what is baldness? We're going to scroll up to the top, look at our genotypes or our alleles, sorry. And we see that capital B means normal hair growth, lowercase b or recessive means baldness. So if we have someone who is bald who is a female, it must mean that she is homozygous recessive. And if we have a normal male, we know that they have a capital B, that they're dominant. So this is, let's say, grandma and grandpa, they're together and they had 2 kids. They had 1 son and 1 daughter. And then that daughter married a man, well, had a kid with a man at least, had 4 kids, had a son and 3 daughters. And then this daughter, oh, sorry, I said it the opposite. This is a son, married a female, and then had 3 daughters, 1 son. This is a daughter, married a male, and had 2 daughters and 2 females. And her poor 2 daughters over here are bald. So I'm just going to put it down here. You should put X's and Y's inside of each circle or right next to it where I can tell what it is. So X's for both of these, right? We know that they're bald. So they have lowercase b and lowercase b. Okay. So we know that they got 1 X from mom, 1 X from dad. Considering they got 1 X from dad, what must dad be? He would have to be bald, right? He would have to have a lowercase b to pass down to his child. So he must be bald. So we could like really color him in here because he's affected. And then over here, let's see here. Okay, sorry, I had to pause the recording, so I'm trying to get back where I was. So we know that dad is bald here because he has to give the lowercase b, the recessive allele, to his daughters. So we know that mom must also have a lowercase b, right? She has to have a recessive allele because she's giving the other X to her daughters. But we know that she's normal, so she's got to be heterozygous, or better yet known as a carrier. Okay, so I will leave the rest of this for you guys to fill out. Make sure that you fill out even the part that I've done for you here. And it's easiest if you start at the very top, right? We're going to get the grandparents down because we know them, and any other ones that we know. But for the ones that we don't know, what's easier is to work from the bottom. So we know what these genotypes are. So then we can figure out what this one is, okay, in accordance with their partner. So make sure that you go through that, understand it. For the exam, when you are typing this out, let's say I will have all these labeled. So I'll say like number 1, number 2, number 3. And so you will go and you'll type out number 1. You're going to write a capital X. And then if this is the genotype here, that's homozygous recessive, you're going to write capital X, lowercase b, and then you're going to put a space, which I'm just going to denote as a underscore, but it's just a space, capital X, lowercase b. If you write it any other way, it will be wrong. If you forget a capitalization, if you forget a lowercase, if you forget your X's or Y's, you will not get it right. So make sure you write it this way. Just as an example, we'll do number 2 as well. We would have a capital X, capital B, and then we're going to give a space, which I'm not going to write the underscore here for, just to show you. And then we would have a capital Y. Okay. So that is how you'll do it on the exam. Make sure that you type it well. Make sure that you watch all of your other typing and spelling and capitalization throughout the entire exam. There are a lot of fill in the blank and essay questions on this exam, more than any other exam. You also will have to do a Punnett square on this exam and turn it in via a file. So make sure you save it as a PDF and turn that in. If you have issues with it, don't refresh your screen or anything. Just email me the file separately and tell me that it's for your exam. That is fine. There are a lot of other questions where you will need to do a Punnett square, although it doesn't ask you for one. But in order to figure out the answer for it, you'll have to do the Punnett square. So make sure you have some scratch paper to do those kind of things with, and then you can answer the questions, even though you're not going to be uploading your Punnett squares on every single one. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, good luck on this class activity and good luck on your exam.